Do you remember when Star Wars games offered not just individual focused ground, space, and lightsaber combat, but also the thrill of conquering the galaxy? Where personal skill and overarching strategies met on a galactic stage? Well, this used to be the norm for Star Wars games developed in the early 2000s, and none succeeded in mastering this symmetry of ability and wit quite like Battlefront 1 and 2's Galactic Conquest. A game mode that forever shaped my view of what a Star Wars game could be, gifted me with endless hours of enjoyment, and remains one of, if not the most, requested game mode for new Star Wars games. While any Star Wars fan worth their weight in Beskar knows of Galactic Conquest and its role in both Battlefront's success, I wanted to take a look at why Galactic Conquest is exactly what Star Wars needs and why it's so beloved. Specifically, what it did right, how other Star Wars games of the time tried to capture a similar magic, and whether or not we could see a revival of this iconic mode in the future. Galactic Conquest for many, including myself, was the standout game mode of Battlefront, and its peak form can be found in Battlefront 2, a game which at the time was, and to some still is, the best Star Wars game ever made. Now whether or not that's true is a video for another time, but the Galactic Conquest mode within Battlefront has undeniably left a permanent mark on the Star Wars gaming community. How did it accomplish this? Simply put, Galactic Conquest combines the best part of what makes a Star Wars game great and puts it into one playable experience. Starting in a galaxy at war, players must strategically place and maneuver fleets, skillfully engage in both ground and space combat, and direct the outcome of the galactic war in which they are participating. With an economy to manage, troop unlocks and upgrades, and most importantly, the ability to play with and against friends, Galactic Conquest stands alone amongst not only Star Wars games, but the larger gaming landscape as a whole as a complete unique experience. It's a welcoming game mode for players unfamiliar with grand strategies, yet it has enough depth to appeal to those who love them. It captures the feeling of managing an army on a galactic scale, much like Empire at War, but without overwhelming or alienating its shooter audience. By keeping the actual combat focused on individual soldiers at battle, it maintains a broad appeal that is both strategic and action-packed. With the roaring success and praise of Galactic Conquest, many Star Wars games that released after the original Battlefronts made similar game modes, though none would receive the same level of attention. A year after Battlefront 2's release, Empire at War came out, taking the strategic side of Galactic Conquest to its fullest extent. It replaced the first/third-person shooter battles with intense real-time strategy, fleet, and ground battles. It excelled in making the player feel like they were in charge of a galactic-wide battle. While it was much more niche, given the nature of grand real-time strategy games, it did truly capture what makes Galactic Conquest so memorable, which is the way it showcases the battling of Star Wars factions on a galactic scale. The next iteration of Galactic Conquest came with Star Wars Battlefront Renegade Squadron, which released 2 years after Battlefront 2. And while it incorporated Galactic Conquest, it was much different. Instead of the unique playstyle found in Battlefront 2's Galactic Conquest, Renegade Squadron's Galactic Conquest was very similar to the board game Risk in how it was played. This is because there were multiple phases of drafting, maneuvering, and reinforcing. If you've played Risk before, think of it like you took the territories and replaced them with planets, and the continents with sectors. Now, the game did introduce some interesting elements, like planetary upgrades, and heroes for each sector controlled, but it lacked key features such as fleet creation and movement. Instead, it had armies move directly from planet to planet. Given these differences, to me, it never quite captured the same feeling as Battlefront 2's Galactic Conquest. Although it maintained the strategy shooter combo that made the original great, it felt less fleshed out and original. 4 years after Battlefront 2 release, Star Wars Battlefront Elite Squadron came out, which also included a Galactic Conquest mode very similar to Renegade Squadrons. But it was even more stripped down, with fewer planets and sectors. While the attempts that both Renegade and Elite Squadron made at recreating the magic of Galactic Conquest were fun and are commendable, they never quite reached the peak of the originals. And since then, all the way back in 2009, there has been no reiteration of this amazing game mode. Yes, the new remastered Battlefront Classic Collection had Galactic Conquest within it, but it was nothing new, and the launch of the game was notoriously bad and heartbreaking. This leaves Galactic Conquest in a very uncertain, peculiar position. Fans still rave about its greatness and long for a new reiteration, but there really isn't one in sight. While it is true that the gaming studio BitReactor has confirmed that they are working on a new Star Wars real-time strategy game in collaboration with Respawn, there is no information on what it will be like, and I'm keeping my hopes of a reimagined Galactic Conquest in check, as it assuredly will not include the Battlefront shooter aspect. I have fond memories of playing 1v1 Galactic Conquest all night, and still managed to convince a buddy to play with me every once in a while, There's really nothing that matches its accessibility and excitement. It's super easy to pick up and play for non-experienced players, and its core gameplay is a lot of fun. It's really only held back by the hardware limitations of the time. We haven't seen a Galactic Conquest in almost 20 years. Imagine what it would be like today and what it could do for the Star Wars community as a whole. With the advancements in gaming technology, now is the perfect time for Galactic Conquest to come back. Players are looking for something more than just online multiplayer battles. They want depth, replayability, and the kind of strategic gameplay that Galactic Conquest offered. For as long as I can remember, my dream Star Wars game has been a fully fleshed out, standalone Galactic Conquest game. Something that truly captures the feel of the originals, but with modern gameplay mechanics and graphics. The mods and multiplayer available for Empire at War come so close, having the strategy aspect pretty much nailed. But imagine combining that with ground combat and starfighter battles of a game like Battlefront 2017. Today, when it comes to Star Wars and gaming, the community is in a very torn and conflicted state. The 2000s era that led to the creation of so many games has passed. EA had their turn making their games, which I'm personally a huge fan of despite their flaws, and now with a Star Wars gaming license open to any studio, the first game we got, Outlaws, missed the mark, and the future of Star Wars games seems rather uncertain. Star Wars Eclipse is at least another 3 to 4 years away. We have very little information on it, and other than that, there isn't much to get excited about. I think a game mode like Galactic Conquest is exactly what Star Wars could use right now. Something that excites and unites both old and new players. A game mode with broad appeal and a built-in fan base that has been begging for a new Galactic Conquest for over a decade. I know it's a long shot, and we might not ever see this game mode again. Given the current state of games in general, and especially Star Wars games, it's very unlikely that studios want to take a risk on something that isn't easily profitable and proven, and this goes double when they're dealing with a Star Wars license. But man, I can almost guarantee that a reimagined Galactic Conquest with a completely modern overhaul would certainly do numbers. And as I've said, I think it's exactly what the Star Wars gaming community needs right now. It's surely apparent by this point just how much I miss and love Galactic Conquest. I just had to make a video on it. This game mode has provided me with endless hours of fun and has opened my eyes to a whole new genre of gaming. I really enjoyed going back and seeing how it evolved over time and sorely miss it. So here's hoping that someday we can all play it again. I hope you all enjoyed. I've already made videos discussing squadrons and outlaws, so if you enjoyed this video, you might find those interesting. Let me know what you'd like to see me cover in the future. Do you prefer the more journalistic deep dive videos on random topics, or the focused Star Wars gaming content? I'm passionate about both and I'm fine, swapping back between them, but I would just love to hear y'all's feedback. Also, what are some of your memories with Galactic Conquest? Did you enjoy it? And when's the last time you played? As always, thank you for watching. Please consider subscribing to my channel and liking this video, and I'll see you next week.